Welcome, brave listeners, to Wilhelm Presents Frightening Tales. I'm your host, Wilhelm. Tune in each week where I entertain my listeners with another dark and creepy tale of the paranormal, donated by authors from around the world. If you are an author of some paranormal fiction and would like to share your story with my listeners, submit one at frighteningtales.com. And while you're there, tune in for more than 30 hours of my previous content. Today's episode is written by Dane Erbach, a writer from the Chicago area who teaches English and journalism at a public high school. His fiction has appeared in Sabotka Literary Magazine and the JMWW Journal. His music journalism can be found in various print and online publications. But now, we hear his dark tale, Myrna.
Gloria almost never left the cab. Almost asked the driver to head back to her apartment. Instead, she handed him a quarter and stepped out of the car into a gutter full of wet leaves. As the driver pulled away, she shook her head and chuckled at herself. What was she doing here, outside this stranger's house? She didn't even believe in psychics. I guess it's better than another evening alone, she told herself. Gloria! A voice called. Gloria, over here! Lucy stood on the porch of a sturdy brownstone beneath a wide roof and smiled, a birthmark dancing above her lip. Come on, she said, wrapping a wiry arm around Gloria's shoulders. The rest of the girls are waiting for you. Walking beside Lucy felt good. She was the touchy-feely type, the sort who bumped shoulders with Gloria during lunch and gave hugs without reason or warning. It made Gloria momentarily forget there was a war going on, that her brother Denny was training in an airfield 2 states away. That she was further from home than she had ever been. Inside, Lucy maneuvered her through a darkened dining room and into a den where 8 other young women sat in a circle, their voices ricocheting into each other, shattering into laughter. She's here, Lucy called as they stepped in. Everyone, this is Gloria. She works with me at the factory. The room's chaos focused into a chorus of hellos and howdy-doos. Gloria couldn't help but wonder how many were married to soldiers, working in ordnance factories, built planes. Ladies, ladies, an older woman chimed from the furthest side of the room. She looked older than the other woman, her face like hard granite. It's time, she said in her cursive voice when the room quieted. They are here, waiting. They can feel the room's energy already. Will you all hold hands, please? All 9 women reached out to each other, held each other's hands like they were small, fragile mice. Joy crackled inside Gloria. The nights hadn't even started, and she already dreaded its end. She assumed the older woman was Adele, the medium who held seances every Friday night in her home. Instead of holding hands, she gripped the arm of her upholstered chair, rested her eyelids, drew slow breaths through her nose. What song shall we sing? One of the girls asked. Before anyone could answer, they started the battle hymn of the Republic, each voice strong, joyful, and in tune enough. Gloria surprised herself by knowing the lyrics, barely even noticed when someone switched off the light. She thought that attending a seance would be something like this, sitting in a circle, singing in the dark, but never thought it would feel so electric. "Hello, dearies," an old woman's voice rose above the noise, and Gloria gasped. It came from the direction of their host, but in the dark, it was impossible to tell who it belonged to. The woman around her squealed and giggled. Lucy brandished Gloria's hand in excitement. No one acknowledged Adele. Instead, they all sang, "Good evening, Madam Moody." Her voice reminded Gloria of someone croaking their final words. And was Adele speaking in this voice? Lucy had mentioned that she was a different kind of psychic medium. Was it a channeler? Or whatever it was so strange and exhilarating that, as Madam Moody spoke, she couldn't help but squeeze Lucy's hand harder. "Now listen, my dearies," Madam Moody muttered after a few minutes of catching up. "I would love to stay and chat, but someone is so insistent on visiting one of you that I can no longer contain her, and so I must leave you all now. But I will return, and I won't be far." One at a time, the woman in the room said, "Goodbye, Madam Moody," but the silence that followed was a little too long. A few women giggled nervously. "Hello?" A voice leapt out of the darkness from Adele's direction. "Can you hear me?" Everyone in the room answered yes, except Gloria, who froze, finding the voice familiar and unsettling. "What's your name?" one of the girls asked quietly. "Myrna," the voice chirped. So different from Adele's and Madam Moody's, so eager and full of life. "It has been so long. I am so glad to be speaking here with you all, but I wish to speak to one of you directly." Polite laughter bounced around the room. "Which one?" Lucy's voice asked. "Why, Gloria, of course," Myrna said. The women in the room gasped in unison, and Gloria felt their stares in the complete darkness. Lucy squeezed her hand. "Gloria, are you there?" Myrna asked. "Do you remember me?" The room's cold silence overwhelmed Gloria. Well, I suppose your voice does sound familiar," she said after a while. But I'm afraid I don't remember anyone named Myrna." "That's okay," Myrna said. "It was so long ago. We were best friends in your last life. Sisters, really." Gloria grew dizzy in the darkness, startled at the sound of a half-dozen necks craning in her direction. "Well, that's lovely," Gloria said, trying to dredge up the excitement she felt moments ago. "Do you have a message for me?" Gloria asked. "Something that I need to hear?" "Oh, Gloria, I know how lonely you have been since you moved to Chicago." Myrna paused here, swallowed hard. Sadness curled the corners of her voice like an old photo. "It's just, I want you to know that I'm with you always. You're never alone, sister. Not with your spirit guide by your side. Gloria sat in her apartment drinking tea, lost in the scene beyond the window. The last remnants of day. Wispy blobs of orange and pink streaked down the indigo sky just above the roofline. The only nice thing about Gloria's room was the view. The building was just a little taller than those around her, offering her panorama that she never could have imagined on the farm. That night, she felt especially lonely, having walked with Lucy to the bus stop before taking their separate routes home. This week, she felt like a real friend, not like the other woman who lived in her building that ignored her or gossiped about how she was too young to be away from home. How foolish she had been leaving her parents' farm when she really didn't have to. Lucy never spoke like that to Gloria, though it had taken 8 months to find her. Lucy did ask about Myrna, about whether Gloria wanted to attend another seance at Adele's home that Friday. Gloria wasn't sure. She felt an uncomfortable curiosity every time she thought about Myrna, which, she admitted, was too often. "Well, I'll be there," Lucy had assured Gloria that day at lunch. "And you'll make friends with everyone else. And if Myrna acts up, we'll take care of her." Gloria sighed. Having friends makes time away from them so much harder, she thought. She looked across the room at the radio, a sleek wooden console with rounded corners that rose to table height. Maybe music can keep me company then, she decided, rising from the sofa and turning the dial. It took a moment for the radio to warm up, and when it did, only static crackled through its speakers. Gloria frowned. Local stations always came through clearly, especially in such a tall building. She crouched down and turned the dial to the right and left. But the signal only found different frequencies of static. Sporadic noise burst through the static. "Hey now. Tomorrow? And then? Back home we used to..." Gloria pulled her hand away from the radio and froze. Not because she had found a station, but because the voice fighting through the static was so familiar. "Danny?" Gloria asked loud enough for her voice to echo off the room's bare walls. It can't be him, she thought. Can it? He was hundreds of miles away training to fly transport planes in Ohio. Could a signal from the base really reach this far? Was this a radio transmission at all? "Chickens and hogs, which aren't as each night for dinner. My sister and we'd go..." She kept listening until midnight when the voices faded back into the static. The conversation soothed Gloria to sleep, like distant chatter of cicadas on a hot summer night. The screech of crickets, the shush of the night's breeze blowing through an oak overhead. She dreamed of camping with Denny, listening to stories he told as they stared into a campfire. And for the first night in 8 months, the loneliness didn't find her. "That was me, of course," Myrna said next Friday, her voice slinking like a panther through the darkness. "I can see your heart, Gloria, and I know exactly how to heal it." Lucy squeezed Gloria's right hand and shifted uneasily in her seat. Like last week, just being invited to Adele's for her seance made Gloria feel seen, appreciated. But also, like last week, hearing Myrna's voice in the near darkness stirred a mix of complex emotions. Uncertainty and excitement, but also an anxiety that hung in her heart like fishing weight, a fear that swung like a sinister hook. "Well, thanks for that," Gloria said in the gloom. "But how?" "It is easy to manipulate radio waves. Even if it wasn't, I would do anything to help my sister feel a little less lonely." Gloria had to smile at that. 8 months ago, she started a new life in a new city to prove that if Denny could serve his country, so could she. But she hadn't felt proud once during that time. Or, if she was being honest, happy. Not until these last couple weeks, until she had met Lucy, or Myrna, for that matter. "Thank you again, Myrna," she said, trying to fill that silence. "Will I hear from you again?" "I can only speak through a channeler, and when invited by one like Madame Moody," Myrna said. "But, Gloria, dear, I am around you always, and will always be there for you. Just ask, and I'll be there." After Myrna spoke during the seance, others came through, and later, all of the women enjoyed drinks and finger sandwiches. But as Gloria slid her arms into her coat, ready to step out to the cab waiting outside, she heard a couple of the other women complain about Myrna. "I wish I had a spirit guide," a woman said. Was her name Cynthia? Her voice in a low grumble so Gloria wouldn't hear. "I don't see why she deserves one, and I don't." There was no sunset the following Monday. Nothing but churning clouds and diagonal rain and dripping, water-stained facades, until it became too dark, too early. Gloria turned on the radio the moment she returned home from work, but the signal came through clear. A swing band, a loose clarinetist, drums that reminded her of the factory's big machines. But as darkness overtook her apartment, the music wasn't enough, and the loneliness crawled in. Gloria wondered if she'd hear her brother again, if the swing music would disappear in a storm of static, and Denny's voice would emerge from the noise. "I suppose I could always ask Myrna," she said aloud. The thought was ridiculous. Of course, Gloria wasn't sure she even believed in Myrna. Then again, she thought, somehow, Denny came through the other night, and Myrna seemed to know all about it. On the ledge beside the window, a dessert plate smeared with runny egg and brown bread crumbs balanced precariously in the dark. Gloria stared at it instead of the raindrops, adorning the window or the dimly lit city beyond. But the rain's rhythm still mesmerized her. And would she sit here the rest of the night? Succumb to the darkness, to the incessant rain? Until she fell asleep, as she had so many times. "Oh, Myrna," she said, Come and keep me company, would you? The room suddenly became much dimmer, as if the bare bulb hanging from the ceiling lost some of its light. Darker shadows climbed up the walls, and the radio fizzled and hissed, drowned in a surge of static. And Gloria heard the noise coalesce into Myrna's bright voice. "Oh, Gloria, you know that I'm always by your side." Gloria struggled to interpret the look on Lucy's face the next day during lunch. The way her eyebrow arched and the corner of her mouth hitched. Gloria worried that Lucy had misheard her. Lucy dropped her spoon into her thermos and said, "If you think I'm about to believe that, then you've gone off the deep end." "You're not mad, are you?" Gloria said. But Lucy just smiled. "Me? Mad? You're the one that says your spirit guide spoke to you through the radio, honey." Her hand reached across the lunch table and patted Gloria's, releasing the tension instantly, like some sort of magic trick. "Tell me more. Did she tell you anything else about your previous life? Like how you died?" Gloria shook her head. "No, and I'm not sure that I'd like to know. In fact, I'm not sure how I feel about having a spirit guide." She picked up a napkin, balled it into her fist without thinking. "She kept assuring me that I would never feel alone again," she said. Lucy leaned across the table, her arms stacked on top of each other. "Well, I could have told you that. I'm not about to let my best friend feel alone without me." Gloria released a sigh she hadn't known she was holding. But instead of looking Lucy in the eye, Gloria looked down at the breadcrumbs that she seemed to leave behind her wherever she went, and wondered how Myrna felt about Lucy's comment. The following Thursday evening, she clicked on the radio and heard static and smiled. Her brother would be coming through that night. The realization made her ribs heavy with hope, her muscles itch with anticipation. "He won't believe me when I tell him that I heard his conversations," she thought. "He's gonna get such a kick out of it." The static rumbled, noisier than normal, rattled the spoon in her teacup. Eventually, though, Denny's voice cut through clearer than ever. "Approaching the runway," he said, his voice stern, and Gloria couldn't help but find it funny. When was Denny ever serious? "We're too high. Summers is taking us back around. Ryan, are you sure?" What am I listening to? She asked herself. Is he on a mission? Am I eavesdropping on his transmission back to the ground? "Ah, shit, we're..." His voice broke through the static and then disappeared. "Pull up! Pull up!" In the background, Gloria could hear squealing, a storm of alarms or screams of the noisy static. She couldn't tell. "Ah, shit!" he said again in a voice that Gloria recognized as frustrated, scared, and she held her breath. Questions flicked through her mind like a shuffling deck of cards. Is he in danger? Is something wrong with the plane? What happened? But his voice never returned to answer her questions. Gloria continued to hold her breath as the static faded, then flipped to music. A clarinet solo slipped over a swinging bass. A piano melody skipped like a little kid. Instead of her brother's comforting voice, a jazz number eased out of her radio speaker, and she wondered what that meant. That night, Gloria slept with the windows open, let the sounds of a restless city soothe her. An occasional breeze brushed through her hair as she dreamed of a picnic with Denny in their spot, fishing rods stuck into the ground, a silver sun shining overhead. But Denny wasn't there, and instead of the breeze, a white hand brushed through Gloria's hair. When Gloria turned to her right, she saw Myrna, unblemished, beautiful, her coal-black curls impossible to contain. Her hand passed through Gloria's sweaty locks as she whispered, "It's okay, sister. You don't need Denny anymore. You have me." It took days for Gloria to finally tell Lucy about Denny and her dream. They were on the line together, filling warheads full of powder, and the crimped look on Lucy's face made heat to radiate from Gloria's heart. "Boy, that doesn't seem right," Lucy shouted over the noise of the factory floor. "Why wouldn't your spirit guide assure you that Denny's in a better place?" "Maybe she did," Gloria hollered back, "in her own way. She drew her gauge out of the torpedo and tapped 3 times like one might a well-behaved child. 'This one's ready,' she shouted, and stepped to the next warhead. Lucy nodded, but her eyebrows knotted beneath her headscarf as she retched the detonator onto the torpedo's nose. The lunch whistle squealed on the far side of the factory. "Go get us a table," she grunted, wiping the sweat off her forehead and pivoting to the warhead that Gloria had just measured. "I'll take care of this one and I'll meet you there." Instead of attempting an answer, Gloria wiped her hands across her apron and stepped away from the line. A content smile bent across her face as she walked alongside the other woman towards the lunchroom. The explosion slammed Gloria onto the concrete floor, the concussion hot and fast, though she was 50 yards away from the line. For a moment, a silver whine replaced all noise. The darkness behind her eyelids reeled. When she rolled over, Gloria saw all the other women rushing towards where she and Lucy had been working. The factory filled with plumes of black smoke that reminded her of Myrna's hair, smelled like hot metal and dripping rubber. It rose towards the ceiling like a giant haunching over the factory floor, watching every move she made. Her hearing returned in time to hear someone screaming, "Everybody out! This is not a drill!" But Gloria didn't want to lift herself off the ground, because she knew that Lucy was there, where the flames danced and the smoke rose and the factory's noise hushed beneath the roar of destruction. She knew Lucy was there, and that she'd never see her again. Each step up her apartment building's stairwell rang Gloria's skull like a bell. The lingering chemical smoke tinted every breath she took. That smoke rising toward the ceiling, full and tangible like an ugly body bending over the tragedy, still swirled in her mind along with the only thought she could translate to words. Myrna. She shook the name out of her mind as she walked down the hallway. What does Myrna have to do with it? She was able to ask before her brain fizzled out again. After finding her way into her apartment, Gloria didn't remove her coveralls or wash her face or sit on the toilet. She mindlessly put a pot on the stove for tea, switched on the radio, collapsed onto her couch. She knew if she tried to re-engage her brain, she'd melt into a clod of tears and snot and sob until dawn. So, she kept herself catatonic, allowing the bouncy swing song to dance quietly around her. But then, the music cut to static. It took her several seconds to notice the noise and the quiet voice pushing through it. "I'm sorry, Gloria," it whispered. "Will you ever forgive me?" Gloria blinked slowly, sank further into the sofa, weighted by thoughts she could not access. Words formed on Gloria's lips before she understood what she was asking. "Lucy?" "Gloria," the voice said. "It's me, Myrna. Please don't be mad. She annoyed me so much, and to think that she was judging me for what happened to Denny." "Denny?" Gloria repeated, unaware that the kettle was now whistling quietly. The bare light bulb swung overhead, cast strange shadows throughout the room. More than made sense. "It's so unfair." Myrna growled through radio's static, her voice muffled as if unable to find the right frequency. "We haven't spoken for decades, an entire lifetime. But the only one you think about is Denny, and the only one you talk to is Lucy." A sharp thought pushed through Gloria's numb mind. Did you kill Lucy?" The light bulb swung back and forth violently, circled the center of the room. "I had to," Myrna said, so matter-of-factly. "And Denny too. How can we be together with them, standing in our way?" In the kitchen, the kettle squealed, a piercing note that reminded Gloria of radio feedback. All around her, shadows crawled across the bare brick walls like stealthy predators. A neighbor pounded on the floorboards, her roars incomprehensible, almost monstrous. Gloria hyperventilated, barely aware, stuck between the couch cushions, her fingers gripping their corners, knowing she'd fall if she let go. "You're not mad at me, are you?" Myrna said, her voice an almost unrecognizable squiggle of static. The light bulb smashed against the ceiling, and the pounding worsened on both brick walls and the floor beneath Gloria, and the kettle cried like something burning alive. And in the dark, Gloria sank to the bare floor and crawled through the darkness, and stuffed some dirty clothes she found by feel into a bag and just barely remembered to turn off the glowing stove before escaping the shadows of her room. Adele frowned at Gloria from her doorframe. "You should have come much sooner," she said, glaring at the girl still in her coveralls, shivering in the moonlight. "Come in. Come inside." Without her makeup, Adele looked like she could be anyone's aunt. Normal, approachable, the decidedly unmystical. But Gloria didn't hold that against her. Adele sat at the dining room table where a cigarette smoldered in a glass ashtray. "Please, sit," she said, motioning to an empty chair. "We have much to talk about." "Why?" Gloria croaked, her throat hoarse, the muscles in her cheeks cramped and corroded. "I feel responsible for Myrna," she sighed, picking up her cigarette and stealing a drag, holding it in her body like a secret. "I should have told you weeks ago." "Told me what?" Adele blew out the smoke. which danced around Gloria until it disappeared.
That she didn't feel like a spirit to me. She felt like, I don't know, something else. I have spoken to Madame Moody about it, and we agreed that...
Something else? Gloria asked. Adele sighed another long sigh, stole another long drag from her cigarette.
When people think of demons, she said, staring at the amber ashtray, they think of monsters with horns and teeth and claws, or maybe of the devil himself. But demons are something else entirely.
Is Myrna? Gloria started but couldn't finish.
Demon is the wrong word, Adele said. Whatever we call her, she's not who she says she is. She's not your spirit guide, and definitely not your sister.
The cigarette smoke stopped spiraling around Gloria and snaked to the furthest, darkest corner of the room.
These sorts of spirits can occupy a space, like a house,
Adele said, swiping through the smoke.
It's called an infestation. When demons are allowed to infest a space, they can impact others more directly, especially those with whom they share that space. It's called obsession, and can lead to the third phase.
Possession? Gloria blurted, although she could not remember having uttered the word before. Adele nodded slowly.
We're not there yet, she said. If you allowed her into your home, though, when you gave her power over the people and places in your life, to banish her, you must overpower her. And I think that's what we need to do. Together. Tonight.
Gloria nodded grimly. Why me? She asked.
Why would God allow a demon into your life? Adele asked. Because he wants you to see something you can't.
She rested her hand on Gloria's, a half-dozen rings glinting in the room's golden glow.
It's time to open your eyes, dear.
Gloria noticed the way Adele's gaze sharpened, her sudden improved posture. With the lights on, Adele's art was an unnatural wonder to behold, and made Gloria's skin feel suddenly slack and weak. Maybe that's why she works with the lights off, she thought. Gloria, Myrna spoke, through Adele in that voice that had become all too familiar. This evil woman has confused you. We must leave before you make a horrible mistake. Gloria knew what to say and how to say it. She had spent the last hour practicing with Adele, saying the right words in the right way, over and over. But a worm ate away at Gloria's core. What would happen when Myrna went away? When she had no one left in her life? Speak to me, sister, Myrna begged. I know what you're trying to do. I watched you and this scammer rehearsing. This isn't some little play. This is real life. In the name of Jesus Christ, Gloria said, her voice wavering more than it had mere minutes ago. I command you, untether yourself from my home and my life. Gloria, this is nonsense. I am not a demon, and I am not tethered to your home. I am your spirit guide. I am here to protect you. In the name of Jesus Christ, I command you, untether yourself from my home and my life, Gloria repeated, more firmly than before. Myrna's voice boomed through the room, too enormous and oppressive to have come from the medium's mouth.
You are a fool. I have done everything I could to protect you, to rid you of your pain and loneliness, and now you want to banish me from your life?" Adele claimed that, after commanding Myrna 3 times, the bond would be broken. But in order to say it and mean it, Gloria knew she had to break away from Myrna's insidious gaze, to find the anger and sadness in her heart, her loneliness, and channel it through her words. "In the name of Jesus Christ, I command you, untether yourself from my home and my life." The floor beneath Gloria's stocking feet vibrated. She hadn't expected the demon to reveal itself, to roar and bellow like a hound of Satan. She had not expected the world to shake. Nor did she expect Myrna to beg like a soul taken too young, pleading for salvation. "Gloria, please don't send me away," Myrna cried. "I love you so much. I am complete with you, and you know you're complete with me. You do not want to return back to the loneliness, do you? To that despair and failure?" Adele had warned Gloria about this, the demon using her sin against her. But what if Myrna was right? What if Adele was wrong? Life without a brother was bad enough. Life without a friend was even worse. Did she really want to live her life without a spirit guide? What's worse than losing your spirit guide? Gloria wondered. Your soul sister. Is there anything more lonely? "I'll never leave you, Gloria," Myrna murmured, her voice cracking on the brink of tears. "And I'll be your light anytime it gets too dark." Just as Gloria slid deeper into the darkness, someone squeezed her right hand. She opened her eyes and she saw Cynthia's stony smirk, saw the other woman in the room, 6 of them, holding hands in a perfect circle. Tears wavered in their eyes as they watched Gloria. Now she understood why Adele had gathered these women she barely knew. She might have lost Denny, her brother and best friend. She might have lost Lucy, the companion that gave her hope when all felt lost. But she wasn't alone. She had never been. These other women, strangers, kindred spirits, sisters and wives and newfound friends, were here for her unconditionally, whether she knew it or not. Gloria looked directly at Adele, saw the demon behind her eyes, saw that it needed her. But she didn't need Myrna. "Be gone," Gloria simply said, and the lights in the room blew out like a candle. Gloria spent the remainder of the night at Adele's, dreamt no dreams, and woke up at noon with a cup of steaming coffee waiting for her at that enormous dining room table. The entire house smelled like oatmeal and brown sugar and molasses. Between sips of coffee, they talked about what would happen next. Gloria wasn't sure when Ameritorp would reopen, wasn't sure she wanted to go back, and realized that returning to her parents' farm a few hours north was the right thing to do. "It'll be hard, though, without Denny," Gloria said. "But maybe I can help my parents get through the pain. Maybe I could help them feel a little less alone." Adele nodded, her cigarette smoke wrapped around her like a scarf. She offered Gloria's train fare back.
reminded her that a warm bed waited for her any time she wanted to return to Chicago. They hugged on the front porch when Gloria was ready to leave. The air outside was crisp, cold, the sidewalk dark with dew. The maples lining the street released their leaves into the air, hoping they would land, knowing they would be all right. "Thank you," Gloria whispered in Adele's ear as they embraced. She waved as she hopped down the steps and walked beneath the fiery autumn freefall, unburdened and blessed. "Oh, Gloria, I'm so sorry." The words slid quietly out of Adele's mouth, but the voice wasn't hers. "I had to do it. She was trying to take me away from you." As she watched Gloria disappear down the block, she released an oversized sigh. "It's been a long time since I had a body to call my own. But don't worry, I promise to take good care of it until the next time we meet."
Thank you, brave listeners, for joining me on another dark story. I urge my listeners to go out and find more content by our weekly authors, if you're not too timid. If you enjoyed today's episode, please click the like button. And if you don't want to miss a future story, then click the old subscribe button. Tune in next week for another frightening tale, if you're brave enough.